Okay, we are now starting our second session of the day, How to Teach Like Christ Online. And very excited for this session. We have Hayden Jeppson, who's the Managing Director for Friends in All Nation. And we also have Dan Ellsworth, influencer and writer for Uplift Community of Faith. So if maybe Hayden, we'll start out with you. Could you introduce yourself, and then Dan, and then we'll kick off with some of these questions that we have for you today.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks. As Stephen said, my name is Hayden Jeppson. I'm the director for a project called Friends in All Nations. Our project focuses on producing multimedia content, mainly videos in many different languages, and sharing those out over Facebook and YouTube primarily. And we use this as a way to connect with people to help share the gospel with them. And super excited to talk about our tactics today and what we use to teach online.
Sounds great. And you've been doing fabulous work with people all over the world. So we are so grateful for that and having you here today. Dan.
Yeah, my name is Dan Ellsworth. For a living, I do technology and project management consulting. I'm also a writer and a contributor to Public Square magazine, and I also do online ministry to people in faith crisis through the Uplift Community of Faith.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you both for participating today. As I kick off this, one thing that came to my mind is I remember sitting on a focus group that we spoke about digital missionary work, and a specific young woman, she raised her hand and she asked the following question. She said, I share the gospel of Jesus Christ through posts today. And, anything I find that's uplifting about the Savior, I try to share it. And I've reached out to my friends and I've talked to them about the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I try to be as good a disciple of Christ as I can. And I love doing missionary work. What else can I do to help people learn more about Christ online? And when I heard that, I said, well, a lot of people fit in that boat where they're trying and they've tried to talk to their friends, but what else can they do? So I'm gonna start with that person in mind as we talk about this session of what are ways we can teach like Christ online. And I'd love to get your thoughts on what you think and what would you tell her? So I don't know who would like to take the first steps on answering this question.
I can go on that one because, for us, we run a number of pages and people are running those pages. And I think that what we've found to be most successful is first to just be themselves, be who they are. And if we look at teachings from our leaders in the church, they've often said, just be yourself. President Uchtdorf, Elder Uchtdorf now has said that quite a few times when trying to teach online, just genuinely be yourself, and we found that very successful. The second thing that we have found is really looking for commonalities, finding something that you can bond with someone over. And for us, that often is culture. We have people who have served missions in these countries, have lived there, have studied these languages, maybe are from those countries studying here in the United States. And so there's this common bond that you can find that helps build a relationship between someone, and that can lead to someone experiencing and feeling the light of Christ.
So Hayden, let me jump in there, and then I want to hear Dan's comments on this one. But you specifically, with the group you've created, tell us about, you've went ahead and created pages. Tell us about that, because for her, as she's trying to learn, she's like, what can I do next? Learning from what you just did and what you're doing, that would be something that would be the next step she'd probably want to do. So tell us about your pages and how has that worked out?
Yeah, so what we've done is over the course of a few years, I guess should be important to say where we're located. We're mainly located in Utah Valley and in Provo and Orem. So we have access to both students at BYU and students at UVU, as well as just returned missionaries who are here in the Valley, who are coming from serving in many different foreign countries, speaking many different languages. And what we've done over the past few years is build a kind of system of pages that focus on specific languages or specific cultures. And from those pages, we just reach out to people and, talk to them about their culture. They always find it interesting to see that so-and-so speaks Albanian or so-and-so speaks whatever language. And then from there, as we celebrate their culture, they begin to ask questions about, well, why did you live in my country? Well, why do you speak my language? Well, what do you think about it? And that's where you begin to build those bonds that eventually can turn into someone telling you, I'm maybe going through a hard time, or, my family is very important to me, and kind of give you those opportunities to be able to share a message that you may have with them, a message about families, a message about suffering. And so that's kind of our aim, is to first build relationships with people over something that we enjoy, and then at the right time and at their kind of welcoming, to be able to share with them a message that we have and that we believe can better their lives.
So you actually, like, if I, say I lived in Brazil and I, served my mission in Brazil, then what you would do is you create a page targeting to a specific area in Brazil, and, start involving the members there, start talking, start addressing that audience through videos or in posts, or what would you do in those pages?
Yeah, that's right. Yes, we primarily use videos in our project, but what we've seen in many projects is that it really can be any multimedia type. For us, it works well to use videos of people talking about their experiences. In marketing and communications, this is called organic content. So it's not produced, it's not professionally produced or scripted. It really is just shot on an iPhone, a few people talking about their experiences, and people really connect and enjoy seeing that authenticity. And as far as demographically what we do, we tend to do it on a language or country basis, but there definitely is the ability for example, missionaries who are currently in the field serving, who may want to be involved in something like this, could do it for the specific area that they're over, or even just a mission, which is a smaller geographic subset, and kind of tailor it towards that way.
So if I summarize that, and we'll jump into Dan here in a second, is, you created a page specifically towards, your idea is a specific topic. In your case, it could be Moldova, a country in Moldova.
Exactly.
And then you share, these are experiences I had in Moldova. And then these are, and you could speak in their own language. So very much like Ammon, I serve my people, right, where they are. And then you start inviting people from that area, and they find something to bond over. And once you've, bonded over a specific area, then you start sharing the gospel with them. And this could be applied at I know I lived in Dripping Springs, Austin. It could be all about, let me start a page about Austin and in the Dripping Springs area, and one of the things that they care about and the experiences they're having, and not necessarily telling them. Did you find if you go out and tell them too much about what you care about, does that really help, or is that detrimental?
No, I mean, I think that it's all about having that conversation, even if it is virtually, of, this is something that is important to me. I know it's probably important to you, and having that conversation there.
Yeah. But I like what you said about bonding over common elements first, right? And that gets them in their attention, and then you start sharing with them. So that's a good feedback. Dan, now I know you come from a different perspective, because not necessarily creating a page about a specific country, but you tell us a little bit about the efforts you've undergone and how you've been able to, if you're speaking to this girl and say, what else could you do to help the gospel? I'd love to get your feedback there.
So there are things to do, and then there are also things not to do. Okay. Yes. When I think of teaching like Jesus, the scriptures tell us that he taught as one having authority. And the way that we interact with other people online in social media can contribute to people's perceptions of our authority, or it can detract from people's perceptions of our authority. So when I log into social media, I love there's a word that President Nelson and and Sister Craig and others are using a lot in their talks these days, and it is intentional. When I go into social media, I'm very intentional. I don't contribute to chaos and contention and those kinds of things, because I know that there are people watching me on social media. And if I am a voice of anger and contention and chaos on social media, then when it comes time to share the message of Jesus Christ, I have no credibility. I have no authority, because I've been spending all this time creating chaos and contention, right?
Yeah.
So that is what not to do. Don't squander your authority in those kinds of behaviors on social media. The other thing is, when I teach teaching gospel doctrine or any other classes, I think of Jesus and how he taught. Why did people listen to him? Well, they listened to him because he was compelling. He was interesting. If I want to share my faith with other people online, it needs to be done in a way that is actually compelling. It makes, and specifically, I think of, my objectives when I teach a lesson are to either present people with new information that they have not heard before, because that's compelling, or present them with something that they already know, but in a way they've never seen it presented before. That is also compelling, right? When I see the things that I share on social media are generally not, a cute little meme about Jesus. Those are wonderful, or any, but Jesus to me and the restored gospel, these are very deep and compelling things, and I want to share. I want people to feast, when they see the gospel. So I don't share every single spiritual thought that comes across my way on social media. I'm selective, and I pick things that are challenging and compelling and really, people can kind of sink their spiritual teeth into them, right? So those are my twin sets of advice to somebody asking that kind of a question. There are things not to do. Don't do those. And then there are things to do. Be intentional and really think about what you're sharing. Is it just adorable, or is it really the compelling, interesting gospel of Jesus Christ?
So let me ask you a question with that. So Uplift is a community where people have a faith crisis, and they join this group, and you help them out. And usually when I think of faith crisis, I think of someone that might want to go see their leader of their church and talk it over. But many times, I'd say the majority of times, they turn online and they're looking for help. So in your case, how do you interact with someone? And I like your part that you talk about the meaty part. How do you interact with them, and how do you make them feel a spirit online, and you help them through their challenges effectively? Right. So how do you guys do that in that group?
So that is, there's a part of it that is kind of hard for us to do. And I would say it's harder for men to do than women generally. And that is really listening to somebody. When somebody comes and says, I have a problem with my faith, here it is. A lot of times our instinct is to write them a prescription. Like, okay, you're broken. I'm a doctor. Here's your prescription. Take 2 and call me in the morning, right? Instead of really exploring, hey, tell me about your background. Tell me about your upbringing. Tell me about your experiences, and getting to know this person a little bit better. Listening, in terms of when we think of like this medical analogy, okay, if you're a doctor, listening to somebody helps with pain relief. It doesn't necessarily cure the person, it doesn't fix them, but it helps with pain relief. And that is very, very important. And that is true in our online interactions as well. If somebody says, hey, I struggle with this concept It seems obvious to you, but it's something that is unsettling or difficult for me. To be able to acknowledge that and say, hey, I know what it's like to struggle too. This particular issue isn't hard for me, but other issues I've really struggled with before and have been challenging for me. So I know what it's like, and I appreciate your honesty. Something authentic and honest like that is pain relief. It helps that person feel, wow, I'm not crazy. It's normal to struggle with our faith. It's normal to wrestle. And it is. Faith is supposed to be challenging. It's supposed to be, take up your cross. It's not all about just, feeling happy all the time. God wants us to grow, and growth involves work. So to be able to model that online, that's what we try to do in Uplift. And frankly, that's what I try to do outside of Uplift as well.
Now, I think that is essential for how to teach like Christ online. What I've learned is Pew Research put out what percent of people are looking to switch churches, and only 5%, a small minimal part, is looking to really switch because they have a big disagreement with their doctrine. A lot of the reasons are that they need something. They're trying to overcome addiction. They're needing help in some ways. So if you are just out there promoting what you have to say and pushing it in their face, let me ask you that, Dan. Does that work? What's going to happen? And you've been through this, right? When people have faced crisis, is the first thing you come to them as you kind of tell them what they need to do? How does that start off with?
It does not. It's so counterintuitive. We often assume that somebody is looking for a book to read. Hey, this book helped me through that issue, so of course here it is. But some people just want to not feel as frightened as they feel right now. Gosh, things that made sense to me when I was 14, now I'm 28, and it's not as easy to make sense of some of these things anymore. And is there something wrong with me? Am I bad? Am I faithless or whatever? And just to be able to listen to somebody and say, hey, you're okay. This is normal. This is part of living a life of faith, is to really struggle and fast and pray and question and wrestle with God. That's what great people do. That's what great spiritual people do. A lot of times that will go way further in a discussion than simply saying, here's a book to read, friend, go for it. Right?
Yeah.
So listening is again, it's pain relief. It helps somebody to feel better about themselves. And when they feel better, they can make better decisions to read books or fast or things like that. They can actually think more clearly about anything else you might want to put their way.
No, I love that. And I want to hear Hayden's thoughts on this one. The biggest thing I learned about teaching like Christ online is, and this was a principle that came to me, is there's so many people around the world, including myself, that are praying and asking Heavenly Father for help. It happens every day, right? 70% of those Christians pray diligently, and He's listening, and He wants to help them. He can't do it all Himself. So when you're an online minister, digital missionary, all you need to do is reverse that and say, Heavenly Father, how can I help this person? And listen to what they're asking Holy Father for. And He might tell you, but they're probably the ones that are going to tell you. And then help them as a Savior would help them. And that to me was the biggest lesson of how to do this online, is if you can put that mind perspective of you're here to help them what they need. You're not here to push a message. And Hayden, tell me about, do you agree with that? Or have you seen that, of how pushing a message versus listening and, prayerfully ministering makes a big difference?
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, everything that Dan's saying is definitely applicable and something that we've learned. I think what we've found in our project is that you really do have to listen. I mean, that goes for any culture, any language. and listen online, as in really read what they're trying to tell you, understand what they're trying to say to you, and what's going on with them. Because as you do that, two things happen. One, you just contextually know what's happening, but two, you're able to receive that inspiration that can help guide you in the direction that you need in order to be able to follow up with the right question, with the right answer, with the information that maybe that person needs in that moment. I think that whenever we are talking with people, a lot of times we do jump to those kind of task almost of, here's something for you to read, here's something for you to do, when really all that person needs in that moment is just to have someone tell them it's going to be okay, for have someone to reassure them instead of giving them just something to do, because they can find that anywhere. And so I really appreciate that message from Dan, and going along with how do you follow up with questions. That's something I think that a lot of people, it's a little bit overwhelming in the beginning when they want to maybe try and share a message online, but just kind of trust that comes with time, understanding, how to ask a good follow-up question, how to take what they're saying and interpret that online. And you really can figure out how to do it. It's much easier than maybe it seems.
So we discussed the principle of building a relationship with them, listening to them, right? Don't push your message and try to shove it in their face, but listen, help them out. And then, let's talk a little bit about that help part. And I'm going to throw out an example. I'd love to get your feedback. I had posted a quote about, overcoming addiction on Follow Jesus Christ. And I get someone, it was at midnight, replying back saying, I really need help, right? And I imagine he just did something that he shouldn't have done or something. And he's like, I really need help overcoming my addiction. And I need forgiveness, right? I need to be forgiven. What should I do? How would you guys suggest to answer this? And how would you teach this person online? And let's start with Dan.
Okay, so I'm going to use a football analogy. Okay, when a quarterback is going to throw a pass to a receiver when they're playing football, right? The receiver is running down the field, and the quarterback has to throw the ball ahead of the receiver, but not so far ahead that the receiver can't catch the ball, right? And when somebody comes to us for help, it's kind of the same principle. You want to throw them a pass that requires them to reach, but that is also catchable. And a lot of times we might be tempted, again, coming back to this theme, we might be tempted to just throw resources at the person that are far in advance of their actual conversion to the gospel of Jesus Christ. Okay. And for somebody who's addicted, the addiction is a situation that requires transformation of the person, and to where they no longer crave the thing that they were craving before. And so just throwing resources at them, it might be helpful to some extent, but this is a situation where it really helps to have somebody who understands what that means, in terms of helping with addiction, and how that person needs to transform their perception of themselves and the world. So we need, if somebody were to come to me in a situation like that, I would want to point them to a Latter-day Saint or a Latter-day Saint group where people understand these just foundational concepts. That are, again, they're like a catchable ball that the person can catch and actually run with, rather than, drop a pass again, because we've given them resources that they really didn't know how to use.
No, I love that, because the first thing I did, because it was, I think you need to say a prayer, because some people may not know how to deal with addiction at that point in time, and this guy needed help, so I was like, oh, okay, let me pray, let me find out. And then as I asked for the Spirit to know what you say, because you have time online to do this, I said, are you okay? Right? And we started talking about how they were doing. And what he really wanted at that time was, I need someone to talk to help me deal with this, is what you said, right? And instead of just throwing them like, go read this now and, fast for 3 days and you'll be fine. I said, let me figure that out. And I ended up being able to find a local bishop. And I said, look, do you want to come into our church and meet with a bishop in a private setting? And come to find out, this guy was a minister in his church. And I said, do you want to meet with ours and then, get help? And he says, I would love to do that. So that's a good point, is what does that person feel like they need, and helping them out. Hayden, to end it off, love to get your feedback on this, right? How would you add to this one to help people online? If they have that concern.
So I think what Dan is saying, for us, it boils down to just be a person, be a friend to that person. And again, that's when you lean on those shared bonds and say, hey, be honest. Maybe you don't understand what they're going through, and don't pretend like you do if you don't. But also say, I'm your friend, I'm here, and I'll help you as you need it and as you're able to receive that help. I think for us, because we do spend a lot of our time, talking to people outside of the United States, it poses some more logistical challenges for us, as far as, the nearest bishop may not be anywhere near close to where this person is, or they don't have the materials in that language. And so for us, it's crucial to just be the friend, be the person that's there that can fulfill that part of, I just need somebody to talk to. I just need somebody that can, that I know someone's there, someone's listening to me. And that also for me is the Christ-like thing. I mean, Christ definitely had plenty of times where he taught and lectured, but how many times was he a comforter and just a presence for somebody to be able to lean on? And so in our project, that's really what we try to do.
Sounds great. We're running out of time here. I appreciate both of you. We've learned about, don't push your message, build on common relationships, listen, be a friend. And then back to what Dan said, teach them the gospel of Jesus Christ as Christ would teach them. And we have tons of resources out there. There's groups, there's pages that you could send them. I know with this addicted person I was working with, I would just send them every day. I'd say, look, is it cool if I send you something to help uplift you and check up on you? So I'd started sending him like articles to read, and we discussed those. And it was meaty things, and I know he felt the Spirit. And then he would send me, him teaching a sermon in his church and interactions he had with his members. And that he wanted to show me that he was doing well. And that was great. And I said, look, good job, right? And I'd keep pumping him up. But he went through, as he's going through this challenge. But thanks, both of you, for your service, for this time, and for this great advice on how to teach like Christ online. Thank you, and appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, we'll end the session and we'll jump on to the next one here.